Hello, children. In our previous lesson, when people rebel, we have learnt about the people, group of people, different sections of people who rebelled against the British. Now, why we understood the reasons also. Why did they rebel against the British? Because they were not getting their rights. They were not. They were not. They were not free to use their rights. So they rebelled, like artisans, craftsmen, peasants, landlords, sepoys, many others. Now, when it comes to the artisans and handicraftsmen, the reason was the raw materials which India is abundant were taken up by the British and were giving the least least quality products. So our people rebelled against the British. Now, in this chapter, we are going to learn about two industries which were main industries of our country for our revenue and which declined because of the British people. Now, this chapter is weavers, iron smelters, and factory owners. In this chapter, we will discuss about the two very important industries during the time of the British rule: textiles, iron and steel. The English East India Company, as we know that English East India Company was into power till the year 1858. It was having its own rules, but after the first revolt of 1857, which ended in the year 1858, it lost its power and the British took up the power. The English East India Company came to India to trade. As we know that it came to India for trading the Indian goods. Slowly it occupied our nation and the pattern of trade changed over the decades. The British East India Company established British rule in India. The late 18th century, the company was buying goods in India and exporting them to England and Europe. It made huge profits through trade. During this period of time, there was a great industrial revolution all over the world. There was tremendous growth in the textile and iron and steel industries. Textile, iron and steel industries were important for the industrial progress in the modern world. Britain started to be known as the industrial nation due to the presence of mechanized cotton production in 1850s. It came to be known as the workshop of the world because iron and steel industries started growing in Britain during this period. Mechanized production of cotton textiles made Britain the foremost industrial nation in the 19th century. The industrialization in Britain was closely connected with the colonization of India. As we have also already seen this in chapter number 2, that how East India Company became master of our land because it wanted to trade in our country for the sake of profit. In the late 18th century, Britain was just procuring goods from India for selling them in Europe to earn profits out of the sale of these goods. As the industrial production increased in Britain, now India was seen as a market for its products, and the British started flooding the Indian markets with their goods. How this inflow of goods affected our industries and market will be discussed in this chapter. First of all, let us know about the textile market and its demand in the world. Indian textiles and the world market. Before the British conquest over Bengal, India was the world's largest producer of the cotton textiles. The Indian cotton textile was famous for both its finest quality and the exquisite craftsmanship. Indian textiles were traded in the Southeast Asia and West and Central Asia. In 16th century, various European countries started purchasing Indian textiles for sale in Europe. For example, Patola weave was woven in Surat, Ahmedabad, and Patan, and this type of weave was famous in Indonesia, so it was highly valued over there. Even many words related to the Indian words which were used for various types of textiles are still prevalent in English and other languages. Such words tell us about our history. The fine cotton cloth, which was first seen by the European traders, was the one which was carried by the Arab traders in Mosul, a city in present day Iraq. So they started referring it as muslin cloth. This word earned them a lot of money. When the Portuguese came to India for procuring spices, they landed at Calicut. The textile, which they took back to Europe, came to be known as calico, named after the place from where it was purchased. There were many words which show the popularity of Indian textile in the Western world. In 1730, the East India Company used to send order details to its representatives in Calcutta for placing demand for textile pieces. Piece here means a cloth which was 20 yards long and 1 yard wide. The orders were generally placed 2 years in advance as it was the time required to send orders to India. So, if we take a look at the different varieties of clothes, there was chintz, kozaz, and bandana. All these words are derived from Hindi words. Chintz is basically chint, a piece of cloth which with a flowery design. From 1680s, the floral designs became so famous in England and Europe that the rich people, even the queen herself, started wearing this Indian fabric. Just like this, bandana is derived from the word bandana, which is a colored printed scarf for the neck or head. It is basically a colored cloth produced through a method of tying and dyeing. Many other fabrics came to be known from their place of origin, such as Kasim Bazar, Patna, Calcutta, Odisha, Charpur, etc. The name of place of origin was sometimes given to the cloth. This shows the popularity of Indian textile in other parts of the world. Indian textiles in European markets. During the early 18th century, as the demand for Indian textile grew in England, the wool and silk makers started protesting against the import of textiles from India. So, in 1720, an act known as the Calico Act was made in order to ban the use of printed cotton chintz textile. At this time, the textile industry of England was at its budding stage and it was difficult to compete with the Indian textiles. English producers wanted to safeguard their market from the Indian textiles. Hence, a calico printing industry grew under the protection of the government. They used a copy the Indian printed designs on white muslin or plain Indian cloth. In 1764, the spinning jenny was invented by John Kay. It was a spinning machine that could operate several spindles in single rotation. This increased the production of textile industry. Now, as you can see in the picture, the spinning jenny is a multi-spool spinning wheel. The device dramatically reduced the amount of work needed to produce yarn. A single worker was able to work 8 or more spools at once. In 1786, the invention of the steam engine by Richard Arkwright revolutionized cotton textile weaving. Now, weaving cotton became speedy and cheaper also. Now, as you can see in the picture, The person is Richard Arkwright. Arkwright's achievement was to combine power, machinery, semi-skilled labor, and a new raw material to create mass production. Cloth could now be woven cheaply and in immense quantities. However, Indian textiles continued to dominate world trade till the end of the 18th century. The Dutch, the French, and the English trading companies made huge profits from textile industries. These companies purchased cotton and silk textiles in India and paid for it in silver. When the English East India Company gained political power in Bengal, it stopped paying for it with precious metals. The company collected revenues from peasants and jamindars, used this revenue to buy Indian textiles. So you can see the places Ludhiana, Amritsar, Jaipur, Jodhpur, Bhilwara. These are few places where the weavers were there. Now, who were the weavers? Weavers generally belonged to the communities that had the quality of fine weaving. Their skills were carried on by the next generations. There were so many names for the weavers in different parts of India, like Tanti in Bengal, Julahas are Momin in of North India, Sale, Kaikolar, and Devangs of South India. For weaving, first spinning was done by the women. So this is the art of weaving. Cotton was first spun into yarn. As you know that the cotton is obtained from the cotton uh, plants where the cotton is taken and it is spun into yarn. This was called spinning and it was done by women. The charkha and tekli were household spinning instruments. The thread was spun on the charkha and rolled on the takli, a charkha. When the spinning was over, the thread was woven into cloth by the weaver. Weaving was mostly done by the men. The thread was spun on the charkas and then rolled on the takli. In most of the communities, weaving was done by men. Rangres used it to tie the thread to make colored textiles, and chipigars were the block printed specialists to make print cloth. So for colored textiles, you can see in the pictures, you can see that that yellow color one, those are the colored textiles which were dyed by the dyer. So that person is called as a dyer. For printed cloth, the weavers needed the help of specialist block printers known as chipigars. You can see in the picture, handloom industry provided livelihood for millions of Indians. Now, so, as you know that the textiles were having a good market all over in Britain also, but why were they declined? The growth and development of British industries affected Indian textile producers in several ways, such as there was a tough competition between Indian textiles and British textiles in American and European markets. Britain had imposed heavy import duty on Indian textiles. In the beginning of 19th century, Britishers gained Britishers gained control over African, American and European markets. The demand of Indian goods reduced, resulting in big loss for the Indian weavers. The Indian weavers were badly hit by unemployment. English and European companies stopped buying Indian goods, and their agents were not providing advance to secure supplies. Finally, the weavers had to write petitions to the government to help them. The situation got worse when in 1830s British cotton overtook the Indian market as there was huge inflow of the cotton from Britain. Not only this, by 1880s, 2 by 3rd of all the cotton clothes worn by Indian were made of cotton which was imported from Britain. This made many Indian weavers and spinners jobless. However, handloom weaving still existed for some reasons, like some clothes were not supplied by the machines. For example, saris with intricate borders or cloth with traditional woven pattern were not manufactured by machines. Coarse cloth used by the poor was not produced by the British textiles. Sholapur in Western India and Madura of South India became important centers of weaving in the late 19th century. Even Mahatma Gandhi, during the national movement, urged people to boycott English textile and use hand-woven khadi. This later on became a symbol of nationalism, due to which Charkha was put on the flag of Indian National Congress in 1931. Weavers and spinners who became jobless finally chose other job options. For example, some became farmers or left for Africa and South America in search of work, or many went to Bombay, Ahmedabad, Sholapur, Nagpur, and Kanpur to work in cotton mills. Cotton mushrooming of cotton mills. How the cotton mills came up. The first cotton mill from in India was set up at Bombay in 1854. From the early 19th century, raw cotton was exported from the Bombay port to China and England. Bombay, from the early 19th century, grew as an important port for the export of raw cotton from India to England and China. It was also close to Western India, which had black soil fit for the growth of cotton. So, it was easy for them to procure raw material from nearby places. By 1900, there were over 84 mills which were operating in Bombay, and most of them were established by the Parsis or Gujaratis. The cotton mills were present in other cities also. For example, the first mill was started in 1861 at Ahmedabad, and a mill in Kanpur was also established after that. Many poor peasants, artisans, and agricultural laborers moved to the cities to work in these mills. In the initial years, Indian textile industries faced many problems, as there was tough competition from the foreign textile industry. The support which Indian textile industries first received from the Britishers was during the First World War, when they received the order to produce cloth for military purposes. So you can see that the textile mill rollers, Bombay textile mills. Now, coming to the next industry, that is iron and steel industry. Now, so let us start with the sword of Tipu Sultan and the wood steel. Now, how is it related to the iron and steel? As you know that the story of Indian steel should begin with the famous story of Tipu Sultan, who was the king of Mysore till 1799. He fought 4 wars against the British with his legendary sword. This sword is now displayed in a museum in England. The speciality of the sword was that it was made of high carbon steel known as woods that could easily rip the enemy's armor. Woods is produced in South India. Swords made up of this steel had a sharp edge with a flowing water pattern. The pattern was due to the very small carbon crystals embedded in the iron. Francis Buchanan gave an account on how this wood steel was produced in many hundreds of smelting furnaces in Mysore. According to him, iron was mixed with charcoal and put inside small clay pots. Keeping intricate control of temperatures, the smelters produced steel ingots that were used for sword making. not just in India, but in West and Central Asia too. Woods is an anglicized version of the Kannada word ukku, Telugu hukku, and Tamil word urukku, which means steel. Many European scientists were fascinated with the Indian steel woods. Michael Faraday spent 4 years in studying the properties of woods. But soon, the process of making wood steel declined because the sword and armor making industry died as India was taken over by the various European powers. The iron and steel from England displaced the iron and steel produced by the craftsmen of India. Abandoned furnaces in villages. Although there were furnaces present in every village, especially in Bihar and central India, because it was easy to procure the raw material from the nearby ores, and generally the work of smelting was done by both men and women. But by the late 19th century, the craft of iron smelting started declining. One of the reasons behind this was the new forest laws, which prevented people from entering the reserved forest from where they could get their raw materials. Entry was allowed in some forests, but the smelters were charged with high taxes. This increased their expenses and reduced their income. Moreover, with the availability of British Steel India, the industries started using the imported steel for making utensils and other things. Now, how iron and steel factories came up in India? In the In the year 1904, an American geologist, Charles Weld and Dorabji Tata, the eldest son of Jamshedji Tata, saw Agaria tribe people who were carrying basket loads of iron ore from a hill. They were the Rajhara Hills. Though it was one of the finest ores, but it was difficult to set up a steel plant there because of the non-availability of water. Finally, a place with the help of agarias was found and a plant known as Bhilai steel plant was set up there. After a few years, a large forest area was cleared on the banks of river Subarnarekha and a factory was set up with an industrial township known as Jamshedpur. The Tata Iron and Steel Company that started producing steel here in 1912. Though in the initial years of the company, the Britishers were not purchasing steel from it as they preferred British steel and were not sure about the quality of Indian steel. But during the First World War, to meet the needs of Indian railways, steel of Tisco came into demand. Just like cotton, iron, and steel also expanded when British imports declined in India and the market for industrial goods increased. This occurred during the First World War. This also happened due to the development of both nationalist movement and also the growing demand of the government protection. British government had to concede many demands in order to retain its rule over India. So, in this lesson, we have learnt about the how two important industry, textile industry and the iron and steel industry came up. What were the problems faced by the people who were into the occupation of weaving and smelting? Thank you, children.